I am Julia Odell. Welcome to the cloud. Venturebeat is doing a series of cloud-related coverage, interviews, and videos. Today, I am talking with Jason Hoffman. He is the CTO and co-founder of Joyent, one of the more interesting and significant cloud companies out there. Now, before you change the channel, close the window, or get completely glazed over like the little zombie you are, I want you to know that we have been talking about the term the cloud and what a really weird buzzword it is. People, I think especially consumers, your average internet denizen tends to get really turned off by the term the cloud. What does it mean to you, since you are the proprietor of a cloud company?
Well, and I think from a consumer point of view, it means no different than what the internet was.
Yeah.
You know, meaning that I have things that were online and they're still online. And maybe I used to have things that were on my computer and now they're no longer on my computer, right? And so from a consumer point of view, that's very much what they think of as the cloud. The cloud from an infrastructure provider point of view is a bit different. You know, if we really think of computers as being a relatively, simple thing where you have data and you do compute on data and you send and receive it over a network, then we can actually think around sort of revolutionary parts of the industry where we did network services and then we do compute services and then we do data services. So within that context, the internet was really around tier one internet providers emerging and doing network services. And then sort of a decade later, cloud computing is supposed to be about tier one compute providers emerging and doing compute services. And then sort of tier one data providers coming and doing data services, right? And so within that point of view, we can sit there and say that cloud from an infrastructure provider point of view really means around either doing sort of network bandwidth as a utility, disk bandwidth, memory bandwidth as utilities, and then sort of basically doing memory space, disk space, and compute space as commodity markets. And so within that context, it makes a lot of sense for those of us that do back-end infrastructure. From a consumer point of view, it's no different than just the internet. I mean, no one really cares.
Well, you did make some interesting points about kind of the macro economy of cloud in IT especially, because you're saying, okay, we have one good, that's the bit, and one service that's transferring the bit.
Yeah, that's right. And then how long it takes for that to happen, which we call latency. And we see, for example, with the internet, you actually had things like content delivery networks emerge, where their premium was around known latency, known service delivery times. Just like it's no different than the sort of advantage of a FedEx over a US Postal Service is you're going to deliver something overnight by 10 a.m. And so anytime that we sort of look at basically a transportation business that has a certain service delivery time, there's always going to be a premium market around known service delivery times, rapid service delivery times, known sort of integrity around doing that. And so, we see the same thing now when we look at known disk latencies and known memory latencies and known sort of other service delivery times within a computer.
So for consumers in the long term, say 5 to 10 years is about as long term as I'm willing to go. Do you think that they're going to see any shifts in the products they use as a result of cloud technology and infrastructure?
Well, I think in general what you're going to see is, and we already see this now, in that the sort of desktop PC is not going to be what people use. The base assumption is that, I'm going to have an iPhone and, I might have a BlackBerry and I have an iPad and I have a television and I have and I even think of, our own home, for example, where you sort of sit there and say, well, we got a big TV in the living room that has a Wii attached to it and a cable box. And then, one of the bedrooms, there's a PS3 attached to it. And another one, there's another sort of thing, and, an Apple TV attached to it and so on like that. And just the ability to sit there and say, consume content on any device across any means, is really sort of the equalizing sort of factor that you see there. The idea that I basically buy a new mobile phone and all my stuff is just on the mobile phone. The idea that I sort of buy an iPad and I can just sort of send email because the address book is already there. And so I think what we're going to sort of see is we're going to see where most of us are actually going to consume these types of things really through what you'd call a device, rather than just a computer that sort of sits there. I'm more likely to have an iPad on my lap and sort of browse the internet that way. And so I think we're going to start really sort of heading into what people sort of much, commonly call the sort of Internet of Things. We're really going to start sort of looking around and saying that, I access these services and I do these types of things basically through a device, and a device actually might be a phone or a car or an airplane or my fridge, or a pacemaker in my chest, or a device might be sort of the size of a data center.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you very much for breaking it all down for us.
Yeah.
And thank you, folks, for your patience and your attention to the cloud. We'll talk to you guys more later.